Welcome back to 5 a.m. Story Talk, my friends. This is 5 a.m. Real Talk, a plog where you and I get to talk about what's going on in my life as an artist, what I'm struggling with, and the arts and its industries in general. I've been away for 7 or so weeks, and holy shit, the world's doubled down on crazy wherever you look in the meantime. America is now a full-blown authoritarian state with resistance movements taking on stormtroopers across the country. Canada's announced neoliberalism was a stupid idea to begin with. And here in Australia, where I live, a party that couldn't be more racist than Donald Trump if it tried is kicking ass in the polls. We don't have to get into Venezuela or Gaza or Greenland or what's in the Epstein files or... It's nuts. It's nuts. The good news is, this is when art is needed more than ever in history. When everyone is lost, a bat signal goes up in the sky and artists, we rise to the occasion. Well, you'd hope. In this case, billionaires now control so many traditional outlets. They're making sure that doesn't happen as much as possible. It took white people getting shot on the streets of Minneapolis for Hollywood stars to move past Trump's threats and start acknowledging fascism might, be bad. Better late than never, right? In other words, artists are willing and ready, but are being cock-blocked at almost every turn. But that doesn't mean we don't keep trying, we don't keep fighting, and in 2026, 5 a.m. Story Talk is going to lean even more into that effort. Now, the guest list I've curated for Season 3 of this podcast certainly reflects that. I think I'll probably be talking even more about art that's trying to do exactly that, too. Speaking of art, maybe I should catch you up on where I am in February, besides, scared shitless by the news. As you might recall, this past December, I turned in the first draft of a pilot script I'd been commissioned to write. I'm still waiting for notes on that, which, that doesn't really shock me. Most people I know are waiting months for notes these days, which is a pretty damn miserable way to create, but that's the current state of the film TV industry for you. I was going to spend my downtime over the holidays working on some new projects, and I did, to a degree. I'm working on fleshing out 2 new feature ideas I've had, but I still haven't started the short story I've been trying to get to for months. My good intentions, so many good intentions, were interrupted when my book agent emailed to tell me how much he loved some revisions I delivered. Great news, but that sent me into a much bigger rewrite, which is fine because I love this novel so much. I have no idea what will happen with it, because the publishing industry has gone as mad as the film and TV industries have. But I'm determined that you'll get to read it one way or another. As for what I've been watching, reading, this sort of thing, I want to tell you I tore through the stack of books on my nightstand and I've checked out a load of those WGA Awards screeners, but alas, no. You might also recall that my wife and I bought a house just outside Melbourne last December. We've been renovating it ever since and only just moved in a couple of weeks ago. I honestly don't know how I got any writing done, but I did, and I should be grateful for that. I've always said I could write in a foxhole, and it's true. I've written whole screenplays and more than a few chapters of books on busy public transport journeys. What I haven't had time for is enjoying the art I love so much, though. That's going to change this month now that we've moved in, and as my life gets back to something like normal. Whatever normal is in 2026. All this said, I did get to see 28 years later The Bone Temple, which brings me to something I'd like to talk about today. The degree to which moviegoers are struggling with watching slower films that don't conform to their expectations of storytelling, which, if Netflix is right, is now all about trailer moments and over-explaining everything that happens. Subtlety is dead. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck leaned into this a lot while promoting The Rip, a Netflix film that apparently had to be significantly dumbed down, or whatever you want to call it, in order to keep the average couch viewer engaged. The Atlantic recently published a terrifying article I'll drop into the episode notes. It discusses how film students today now demonstrate an inability to watch films at all, despite the fact that, they're aspiring to make said films. It's a pretty grim state of affairs when you read that they won't even watch most of what they're assigned. Which is what I thought was the best part of film school, right? Watching and analyzing films with other film geeks. But today, the goal seems to be to make faster, dumber content, not film. Content you can quickly swipe through. Swiping has made our kids dumb as shit. We've brain damaged an entire generation out of being able to enjoy anything that lasts longer than the average shit. I think that's reflected in the struggle many have had with 28 years later, The Bone Temple, which lacks a loud, propulsive plot like most Hollywood films. A plot that is, in this case, more thematic than get from X to Y to Z to save the day or whatever you want out of a film these days. You have to emotionally engage with it instead. Let the film happen to you and be capable of interrogating its juxtapositions of horror and despair on one hand, with unexpected beauty, and most importantly, the possibility of hope in a world that doesn't seem to want any. It's a film I'm going to have to watch a second time to really wrap my brain around, but I think director Nia DaCosta and screenwriter Alex Garland put something truly powerful, profound, maybe, on the screen if you leave yourself open to it. I guess that's the problem in 2026. Audiences don't want to work anymore. They want their art obvious. They want it to bludgeon them into submission. Now, I understand this instinct to bend toward that approach, but please, lock that instinct in a lead case, take it out to sea, and kick it overboard. Never listen to it if you want to create something meaningful in this world. You'll create, don't get me wrong, and you might even make a lot of money off of it. But it won't matter enough to still be around in 50 years. It'll be a digital blip, a hiccup, a loud belch that will get a reaction, maybe even a laugh, and then everyone will forget it. Okay, we're in the final stretch here. I'm not quite there yet, so don't just run yet, but I do want to say, if you have any questions about anything I talked about in this episode of 5 a.m. Real Talk, jump into the comments at Substack or the 5 a.m. StoryTalk podcast at Instagram and hit me with them. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already to make sure my mellifluous voice keeps showing up in your ears. Now, let's wrap up with a quote, as I like to do. This one's from Wes Craven, whom I became friends with, and a collaborator at the very end of his life. Shitty timing, I know. I'd been a fan of his work since I was a kid, so I treasure the moments I had with him. Wes, the creator of Freddy Krueger, once said, "Horror films don't create fear, they release it." Now, I thought of this quote a lot after watching 28 years later, The Bone Temple, because the film really lives up to Wes's assertion. This idea that through horror we can face a thing we otherwise can't because of how disconcerting it is, how terrifying it is, how unbeatable it otherwise might seem, and find our way through it to something like hope. At least understanding. The ability to put it in its place, to move past it in some way. Now, another reason I thought of this quote is the outstanding year for horror that 2025 was. As the world grows scarier and scarier, horror filmmakers stepped up, and more so than any other corner of cinema, took it on. Even the Oscars had to acknowledge the genre was doing something so many other filmmakers weren't. Zach Krieger's Weapons, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, and Ryan Coogler's Sinners were all nominated for a slew of major awards. In the case of Sinners, a record 16, including Best Director and Best Picture, two awards that writer, director, and producer Coogler will almost certainly win. A horror film about a white vampire trying to steal black culture winning Best Picture? I mean, wow, right? It's 2026. It's crazy. These are films like The Bone Temple that help us face the darkness, that help us make sense of the horror in our real lives. What a time to be a horror fan, but also what a time to be an artist. And if you are an artist, are you feeling the burden of this responsibility right now like I am? To take on, everything that's happening in the world? Let me know what you think about that in the comments. Again, at Substack or Instagram, links in the episode notes. Okay, that's it for this episode of 5 a.m. Real Talk. Be sure to come back later this week as I welcome the first guest of 5 a.m. Story Talk's third season, writer-director Justin Simien. Dear White People, both the film and the TV series, the horror film Bad Hair, Haunted Mansion for Disney, and the docuseries Hollywood Black that won him an Independent Spirit Award. Guys, I love Justin's work. I think so much of it is fearless, subversive, and, just brilliant. We're going to get into storytelling and the challenges of creating something meaningful in an industry town, and a seminal piece of art from his life, 2001, A Space Odyssey. Guys, his take on it, it's amazing. You don't want to miss this one. Be sure to come back for that. Until then, thanks so much for being a part of 5 a.m. Story Talk. If you were already a fan and have come back for more this season, amazing. I love you. If you're a new listener, I hope I justify your time. I love art. I love talking about art, and I'm immensely grateful I'll get to do it some more with you in season 3 of this podcast and hopefully beyond. See you around, Story Talkers.